Hey guys, and welcome to SlasherX Games. So today I'm going to be covering part 2 of my professional game save implementation. And in our last video, I showed you how to save a single instance of an object. So the next step is showing you how to save multiple instances of a single object. For example, we have these saw blades, we have these pellets that bob up and down. They are the same object, but there are multiple instances of that. So ultimately what we want to do is grab a reference to all of those instances, look through all their properties, save those properties into a single file, and somehow separate each instance so that when we load them in later, we know exactly what's going on. So let's jump straight into the code. Right now I'm going to be showing you how to save these traps. So in this case it's going to be the saw blades, there's multiple of them. So let's expand our scripts, expand save and load, expand save. Let's go into script save over here. So that's save our player. So let's add scr save traps. Okay, so save all traps. Let's add this script. There. Okay, so firstly, let's get a saw count. So this is the number of these saw instances currently in the room. Instance number of object saw. Next, let's check if the save file exists. If file exists, let's call it saws.sav. You can call it whatever you want. Then file delete. This is just to make sure we're cleaning up before we do anything. Next, let's create a save file. File text open. And we are doing right. File name is going to be saws.sav. Okay, so here's where things are slightly different from saving a single instance. I'm going to add a for loop. Var I equals 0. I is less than saw count. That's where that comes into play. I++. Let me expand my editor so we can all see what's going on. Let's grab our first saw instance. Instance find object saw, and that'll be instance number whatever this is equal to. Let's convert this instance to a DS map. So var instance map equals ds map create, and let me actually just ds map destroy over here so we don't forget that. We'll place it somewhere nice at the end of this script. Then we're going to say ds map add. To which map do we want to add? Well, that's the instance map. What do we want to add to it? Well, let's start with our x and y coordinates. Oops, instance.x. So that is that instance. And let me copy paste this line to do our y coordinate. Right over there. And let's actually go into that object saw. Let's find out what kind of properties does it have that we need to save. Let's see. It has something called SP, which is its speed, I think, if I go into step event. Yes, pretty much it's speed that we use in the image angle to make it look like it's going really, really, really fast. So we only have SP to save, so let's copy that. Paste it down here for reference. We can copy this line. Paste it down there, take SP. We're going to give it the same key as what we are grabbing. Alright, so next thing we need to do is convert this DS map into JSON. So we've got our JSON instance equals JSON encode, and that's our instance map. There we go. Then we're going to write that to our text file. Write string, because remember this is going to be a string. It's a JSON string. That's our save file, which we created over there. What do we want to write to the save file? Well, our JSON instance. Now here's something you have to take note of. Now because we've got multiple instances of object saw. We don't want to create source1.save, source2.save, and so on for each individual saw. That just seems a little bit crazy. So rather, let's have one save file for the source.save, and in that file, let us separate each JSON string representation of this instance, of this object, with some sort of unique character. So I'm going to choose the pipe. It's the character you get when you hold down Shift and press the backslash, which should be below your backspace key on your keyboard. So I'm going to say that this is unique, and I'm not going to have any of my properties equal to this specific character. Now you can go for other unique characters, I suppose, if you want. It's up to you, personal preference, really. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this exact same line, paste it down here. Let me just write this for you guys. Separate each saw with a special character. So it's our save file, and it's going to be the pipe character. Okay, so when we are loading from the save file, I'm going to be splitting up all the text in it into an array of strings. That's going to be our character that we're splitting on. And then we can JSON decode these individual strings of that array to recreate our saw instances. Okay, next, let us close the file. File, text, close. And that's going to be our save file over there. And lastly, let's just destroy that temporary DS map. Okay, so let's run through this quickly. We find out how many saws there are, make sure we're on a clean slate before we do any saving, create our save file, iterate through each and every single saw in the source count, grabbing the instance that represents a number. In this case, it's I. Let's take that instance that we're grabbing and convert it to a DS map, grabbing its X, Y, and its speed properties, storing those in the map, converting this DS map into JSON, and then writing that JSON to the file, and then adding our splitting character. So before I go about showing you how to load from this interesting save file, let's fire things up and save the game and see what our file will look like. So I'm here in the app data folder for this project. It's all empty. Our main menu says new game, so let's go into a new game, let's run around, let's jump. Did some stuff. Okay, cool. So our saws are spinning, and as soon as I push escape, it's going to be creating the player save as well as the saw save. We're going to actually look inside there and see what it looks like. Escape. Okay, let's have a look in here. Great. We have a save game file. Let's go into there. Okay, so let's follow the curly brackets. We've got SP equals 15, X equals 40, Y equals 512. Then we've got a pipe character. And then we have another object right over there. Pipe character and another one. Pipe character and another one. And so on. Until we get right to the end. So all we've got to do, like I said, when we load these in, is turn this into an array. This will be element 0. This will be element 1. This will be element 2. And so on. And we can just iterate through all of these and create these traps. Cool. So let's jump into how to load these traps nicely. We're going to go into script load. I'm going to add scr load traps. That's pretty self-explanatory, but anyway, load our traps. Let's create the script. There it is. Obviously, only do this stuff if the file exists. Source.sav. So if our saves file exists, let's get our load file going, and that's file text open read, and it's called this. And only if our load file actually contains content. So while we're not at the end of file, I do encourage you to take a peek at the GameMaker manual to look at all these file functions. You won't believe how many shortcuts you can take just by knowing what's there, and you don't have to recreate the wheel. So if we're not at the end of the file, well, in which file exactly? That's the load file. Then let's load in our master data. So right now it's just one big string. let's get JSON source var saw array equals scr string split. Now this is the script I imported in my part 1. Let's find it here. String manipulation. Credits to Smallware. Because of his lovely solution, I didn't have to recreate this myself. So it just takes in a long string and pretty much the character you want to split it, and it returns an array. It's quite fancy. So what do we want to split? Well, we want to split the master data. By what character? Well, that's going to be the pipe character. So now that we have that saw array, we know exactly how many saws there are. That can be our saw count. And that can equal the array length. It's just a one-dimensional array, and that's our saw array. So long as our saw count is greater than 0. So I'm putting in all these conditions just to make absolutely sure that we're not doing things to things that don't exist, because we don't want our application throwing any strange errors and breaking the user experience. So for each JSON saw, and obviously we don't have access to cool for each loops, we're going to have to create our own for loop. Var I equals 0, I is less than saw count, I plus plus. Var saw JSON equals saw array I, grabbing whatever element out of that, and that's going to be a raw JSON string. Let's deserialize this using JSON decode. That's our saw JSON. Cool. So now we have a DS map. Let's actually call this a saw map. Oops. There we go. Next, let us extract values. So we've got var x, we've got var y. It's pretty much everything we saved. We've got var sp for speed. So that's going to be a ds map find value. And that needs to be an underscore. Which map we're looking at? That's the saw map. What's our key? Our key is x. That one's y, that one's sp. Great. Now, let's create a saw. Cool thing is we can just use with instance create. So that's x is our y. Object saw, that's the type. And in here, we're just going to say sp equals underscore sp. Great, so we're creating an instance, giving it an x and y, and we are giving it a speed. Cool. So then down here, we're going to say file text close, and that's going to be, I think it was a load file, yeah, there. And don't forget, this is a DS map. JSON decode decodes it into a DS map. We need to say ds map destroy our saw map. Don't forget to destroy your data structures, otherwise they are going to clog up your memory. Fantastic. So when we're loading, as long as this file exists, let's grab a reference to that load file. If it's not empty, let's take all the text that's in there and store it in our variable called master data. So that's going to be one long string. Then let's use script string split to split that master data into an array which will contain the JSON string representations of each one of the saws saved in there. Let's grab the count. How many saws are there? And we can use the array length 1D on that. As long as it's greater than 0, for each JSON saw, grab the saw we want, deserialize it into a DS map, extract the values from that map, and create that saw instance. Now this is all happening super fast. The users won't even know what's going on, which is really cool. And then lastly, close our file and destroy the DS map that we created up here. Now, let's see how things turn out. Hopefully nothing explodes. Let's save. Let's make sure we delete everything in here. And let's... Oh, wait. Firstly, we need to update some of these. Script save cleanup. We need to go and say clean... Oh, we don't need to do that. We've got clean up all save. So if file exists, and this is going to be source.sav, you can do a file delete on that. Very good. What else have we got here? Save check. Here we go. And we're going to add an and file exists .sav. Cool. So if those both exist, then we return true. Let's see what else we got here. Script load. Okay, that's all good. Script save, all good. Okay, so one thing I have to bring up, it was a piece of code that we typed in part 1. If we drop down to our game world, into our creation code, I had these few lines of code that I commented out. So the problem we've got now is that once we save all our instances of that saw, and we come back to the game world and we load them, we are creating new instances. Now, if we look at the way we've put our game world together, you'll notice a big problem. So what I'm doing, just to aid me in designing this map, is I've actually created these instances of that saw blade on create. You can see that they all exist. So if these saw blades are still spinning and the game saves and then we load it, it's going to create a second instance of each and every one of these on top of them, which is not what we want. So before we do our loading of something we know that we already have put in our game world manually, we have to destroy them. So I'm going to do that, which means that if we have files ready for loading, I'm going to destroy all instances of the saw that exist before the load. So all these ones are going to be destroyed, and then the script load will run, which will run load traps, which will then recreate these based on the information we have in our save file. Fantastic stuff. Okay, so let's test this out and see what happens. Hopefully it doesn't break. Who knows? It could. We're just going to have to go through things and fix it up if it does. So our folder is empty. Let's run things up. Let's say new game. There we go. So these are spinning. It's quite slowly. Everything's good. Let's push escape. Let us go here. There we've got our saws. Very good. That's all saving. Our player is also saving as he did before. Let's minimize that. Let's continue. Boom. We're right where we were. The saw blades are actually spinning exactly the same speed as they were before. I mean, you can't see them. You can't see the difference that much, but just know that it is working. We can go back into our folder. The save game is still there. Everything's fantastic. It did load successfully. So let's just end the game and see what happens. There we go. Everything is cleaned up. Our button says new game again because we have died. Everything's been cleaned. So at this point in time, I've pretty much covered what it takes to save a single instance as well as many instances of the same object. I do invite you guys to save Object Pellet. It works in the same kind of way because in our game world there are multiple instances of Object Pellet. As you can see, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of them. And the cool thing about this exercise is that Object Pellet has got quite a lot of properties. It's got a direction, it's got a speed, it's got a counter, it's obviously got its X and Y. So there are 5 properties you need to save and load them in. And then again, because this is an object that we've created multiple instances of during our room design, as we can see here, you're going to need to head into the create code and uncomment these 2 lines. So here are the steps you're going to take to accomplish that. You're going to go into script save. You're going to add a script called scr save pellets. Let's call them pellets. You're then going to create that script, which is going to look very similar to scr save traps. You're going to grab your pellet count. You're going to make sure that if pellets.sav does exist, you're going to delete it. Then you're going to open that file, which is going to create it. You're going to create a for loop that's going to go through all the instances of Object Pellet. You're going to create a new instance map. You're going to store the properties of the instance we're currently looking at through this value. You're going to convert that map to a JSON string, write that JSON string to our text file, and write the separator. And then again, close the file and destroy that map that you created at line 15 approximately. Then once that's done, you can focus on creating the script that's going to load these pellets back into existence. So in script load, you can have something along the lines of scr load pellets. In that script, it's going to be very similar to scr load traps. You're going to check that your pellets.sav exists. You're going to grab that load file. As long as it's not empty, you're going to extract the master data from that file. You're going to get the JSON pellets, which is going to be a pellets array using scr string split of the master data and whatever character you're splitting on. Grab the count of that just so you know how many pellets you need to create. And as long as that's greater than 0, you can have a for loop, which is going to grab the properties from each element in that pellets array. It's going to deserialize that JSON into a DS map. You're going to extract all the values. That was the X, the Y, the direction, the speed, that counter property. And you're going to create a single instance of a pellet every time through this for loop. And then again, don't forget to close your text files and destroy any maps that you created in this script. Also, don't forget to add that scr load pellets to your check that's in your scr save check. So have and file exists pellets.sav, so you don't want to save if they don't. And then your cleanup script, when it becomes game over, you're going to check if pellets.sav exists and then delete it. Now in our game, we had a global variable called score. So every time we touched a pellet, score went up by 1. So what I do suggest you do is create a save file. You can call it globals.sav and keep all your global variables in that one file. And then similar to the way we saved a single instance, which was our player, you can go ahead and save each individual global property to one save file, which will turn it into one JSON string, and you don't need separators or any of that stuff. So that about wraps up my solution to professional game save. If you watched both of these parts, you'll now know how to do the saving for single as well as multiple instances of the same object. I hope you found this video educational and helpful. Please feel free to comment, rate, and subscribe. If you like this video as well as many of my other ones, please check out my Patreon campaign. I do appreciate your support. Do that exercise and save the multiple pellets. You can find the project files straight in the description, and that project file is going to have the pellet save as well as the globals save files, so you can check your answers. If you're keen to try out my mobile game, you can find Element Earth on the Google Play Store as well as the Amazon App Store. Links are both in the description. You can also follow me on various social media networks, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, things like that. Links are all in the description. So, again, thanks for watching, and until next time, happy coding!